Hello and welcome. I am not your host, PTF. Who knows where PTF is? He's probably on some sort of a train trying to get up here to Saratoga. But I am Jonathon Kinchen, and this is our best bets with the guys that are going to be on TV for the big race. It just so happens that there's a lot of Fox going on here. So joining me to talk about the Belmont Stakes, as well as some other spot plays, are a couple of guys I'm really excited to have. First, we'll start with a multiple Breeders' Cup winning jockey, Rajiv Maragh. Rajiv, what's going on?
All good, man. All good. Glad to be here with you guys.
And then my desk mate this Saturday with the Belmont on Fox, Chris the Bear Fallica. Chris, what's going on?
Not much. Just looking forward to this weekend. It's good. Curious to see how everything goes. It's a pretty exciting few days of racing with all the other stakes races going on in addition to Belmont. But should be a pretty special feel up there, and looking forward to get up there.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. You take my favorite racetrack, and you take one of my favorite days of racing. You know, Breeders' Cup Day is great, Derby Day is great, but Belmont Day with it feels like 97 Grade Ones. To take those and combine them, bring them up to Saratoga on a day that most people aren't used to being here, it should be a ton of fun. We'll get started first here with the Belmont Stakes, and look, let's let the conversation start where it should with the favorite in Sierra Leone. I'm of the belief there's enough question marks surrounding Sierra Leone at the price he's going to be to potentially look elsewhere. Bear, what are your thoughts on Sierra Leone?
I think he's a clear standout in the race. I mean, I felt going into the Derby that he was the best 2 year old, like I think many people, 2 year, 3 year old, like many people did. Uh, Look, he's two noses away from being undefeated. A bias-aided trip for Dornoch and the Remsen, and then the trip in the Derby where he and Forever Young were banging down the stretch, and he lugged in again, and Mystik Dan was able to save all the ground and just get up and hold off those two horses. Like, I just think you're getting now what I think is the best 3 year old home field advantage at Saratoga with Chad Brown. You're getting the equipment change with the bit. You're getting a shorter field where he should be able to get himself and navigate a much better trip. You're getting the jockey change to Flavien Prat, however you feel about that, whether Tyler should have gotten taken off or not. You are getting someone who is one of the bigger money riders out there now. You may say there are questions. I think the horse is a standout, and I've already bet him at like plus 190 in fixed odds because I think he's going to be shorter than that. So I think he's a standout. I think he's going to get a good pace to run into. I think he wins on Saturday.
Rajiv, I think that Chris and I can speak for Chris when I say this. I've never gotten a leg up. I don't think Chris has either. And
No, not at all.
I wouldn't know the first or second thing about a bit. And I've never been taken off a horse that I thought could win or be a favorite in a Grade One race. I'm sure those things have happened to you throughout your career. What are your thoughts on the bit, on the rider change, and on Sierra Leone?
Well, on the bit, whenever we would have horses that lay in or lay out, and you kind of need that extra steering, like that power steering, because the D bit that they were using originally is it doesn't give you as much leverage. This new kind of prong bit, cage bit, will definitely give the jockey a better chance of steering a horse that would be laying in like Sierra Leone would. And in addition to that, just watching him work since the Derby and with this bit on, it seems like it's having the effect, the desired effect that they would want. Because I see no indication in his morning workouts that show that he's laying in. And even prior to the Derby, its workouts, you could see he had that tendency of laying in. So the bit is having the effect that they want. In my opinion, being a jockey and riding horses that laid in, yes, he was laying in pretty significant visually in the Derby, but for me, I think that Tyler had a longer rein hold on him, and he was almost caught off guard for some reason when he came off the turn. Like he didn't have the stick in the left, he didn't have his rein short enough, and the horse got away from him. So once he set him down, he was always trying to get him back underneath him, but he couldn't really get him there. I feel like with Flavien Prat riding him this time, he's already going to be proactive coming off the turn, already prepared for him laying in, plus the power steering. I don't see him being so dramatic laying in this race. So if you believe that if he doesn't lay in dramatically, he's just going to blow by the horses and tower over them, I think he's a solid play. And I don't expect him to lay in half as much as he laid in the Derby.
So Sierra Leone, I think we all agree is a deserved favorite, and Rajiv, I think that we've talked a little bit about this off show. I'm leaning in the same camp I think that you might, and that's with Mindframe. I just feel like he's got the chance to be brilliant. If you look at his debut Beyer speed figure, he ran a 103 Beyer speed figure. Okay? Speed figures, it's like a quarterback rating in football. The higher, the better. He ran a 103. And that wasn't his first start as a 3-year-old. American Pharaoh, and his first start as a 3-year-old, ran 100. Justify ran a 104. Flightline a 105. Those three horses were brilliant. I understand it's a lot to try to have to overcome with a late start and kind of late to the party, but I do think Mindframe has the potential to be brilliant. Rajiv, what say you about Mindframe?
I share the same perspective that you do. He does give me that Justify S feel, right? I remember when Justify was coming onto the scene, going in as a 3-year-old. He had never he didn't make his debut until early in the 3-year-old year, and everyone was saying he won't have a shot in the Derby. He doesn't have seasoning. He'll be defying all this history and whatever. And when a horse is good, they're just good. And Mindframe running 103 Beyer speed figure, for the Beyer speed figure was higher than the winner of the Kentucky Derby. So 100, that's just kind of shows you 103 horses that aren't superstars. They don't run that kind of number that early in their career. I think he's the real deal. He's seasoned enough. He's had a second start the other day at Churchill Downs. So I think he's seasoned enough. Would we love to see him have more races under his belt? Yeah, obviously, but the Belmont Stakes isn't waiting on anyone. And I think that when it comes to race dynamics, the flow of the race is going to be very favorable for him. Sees the Gray from the inside is going to go. Dornoch is going to be sent. And because Mindframe is drawn in such a good outside post, that run going into the first turn, I see Hirad Ortiz just tracking those two dueling embattled pace setters and sitting that perfect trip to get the first jump on Sierra Leone, who I believe is definitely the horse to beat. It's the horse that has to be on everyone's short list. I just feel like Mindframe might be the best 3-year-old in the crop.
Well, before we jump on to some other spot plays throughout the Saturday of Belmont Stakes Day, I want to remind everyone to subscribe. We're trying to get to like 10,000 subscribers, so if you're watching this, just hit the button for us. We'd appreciate that. Before we get to those, I want to touch on some of the other horses that are in this Belmont Stakes. So a sentence or two on a few of them. Chris, what the Preakness winner, Caesar Gray, what are your thoughts?
I just don't think he's going to get the easy lead that he did in the Preakness. Nobody went. Imagination was terrible in the race, and he just kind of and give Jaime Torres credit and for taking advantage of the easy lead, and they'll give the horse credit for winning. But I just think that the quality of horses that he's facing here. With Mindframe, with Sierra Leone, you got the Derby winner as well. Resilience back in the race. Like I think it'll be interesting to see if Caesar Gray does go to the front again in this race, because he really never showed that dimension. He came from off the pace in the Pate Mile, and they just took advantage of a race where nobody really wanted the lead, nobody went, and they just kept going. So he's certainly not going to have it his way this time around. I think the horse is probably a little bit better than the fluke win in the Preakness, but I'd be inclined to bet against him on repeating his Preakness win.
Rajiv, Caesar Gray?
Yeah, I think Seeds the Gray is a very underrated horse. I think he's one that started the 3-year-old season flying under the radar. And his first race of the 3-year-old season, he won an allowance race at Oakland Park. Then he went on and tried the poly track, and he was just subpar. He ran a decent third. When he got back to the dirt, it was the bluegrass, and he got completely obliterated out of the gate. He got wiped out. He got forced wide. He had no shot. So he's really, things are starting to trend upwards for him, coming together, and I feel like people don't give him as much credit as he's due. I think he's going to have a major say in this race. He doesn't have to have the lead. So if Dornoch goes on a suicidal pace, Caesar Gray might sit off. I do agree with you, Chris, that he was a benefactor of them just letting him be on the lead easily. He was on challenge on a sloppy track in the Preakness. So people are going to say, well, it could have been, he had everything his own way. I think he's a real horse. I'm sure he'll be running early and he'll be sticking around and he won't be disgraced. Is there a world that Caesar Gray wins this race, being on the lead or sitting right off the lead? That would not surprise me one bit.
I'll say this, Roger. You look at his wins; he's been dismissed every single time. 10-1, 6-1, 9-1, 16-1. Like the horse outruns his price every single race to support what you're saying there.
Yeah, and when he stepped on the track in the Preakness, I tweeted out he just stood out in physique. He was the best looking physical specimen on the track in the Preakness. And when you can see a horse that stood out amongst, the Derby winner and all these horses, he's a very underrated horse. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he's definitely going to be a major impact on the race.
Rajiv, we'll keep it with you. How about the Derby winner, the number 3, Mystik Dan?
Very good horse. But one that I think obviously got buttered up in the Derby, had the most amazing perfect trip, and he managed to beat Sierra Leone by a nose, who obviously had a complete, tough trip. So I think there's a bigger margin between Mystik Dan and Sierra Leone, right? I think there's a bigger gap. And I can't take away the success of Mystik Dan winning the Derby, and he's definitely a very good horse. I just see a lot of upside with a lot of other horses, and he's the one that I would say he's always going to run his race. His race is going to be good. But I just feel like there are at least three or four here that are just faster than him.
Chris, how about you
Yeah,
with the Derby winner?
I see it the same way. Like he didn't run poorly in the Preakness at all. I mean, he ran a really good race. Caesar Gray was great that day. But yeah, kind of like Roger was saying, like the upside for Mindframe and Sierra Leone, who I think people became out of the race, and I hate saying this, but it's true. You sound like it's not sour grapes, but like in the Derby, like yes, Mystik Dan won, and he's going to go down as the Derby winner, and history will record that. But I think most people who watched the race kind of thought that Forever Young and Sierra Leone were the best two horses in that race, just because of the way it was run. So he dances every dance, and he runs great in every single graded stakes race. But I think here, and I alluded it to earlier with Sierra Leone, going taking a road game in Todd Pletcher and Chad Brown's own backyard. I think it's going to be tough for him to repeat here.
Anybody else from either one of you guys in the race that are interesting and you want to drop a little sentence about?
Yeah, I like resilience. I'm curious to get your guys' opinion on him, being that Belmont didn't really plan on running him because he had concerns about him getting the mile and a quarter, and he ran a very credible Derby. Like he was there in the stretch, and then ultimately the wide trip and the wide post ultimately caused him to tire, and he faded. But he ran 60, ran well. Since he added the blinkers, he's improved. He ran good in the wood. Uh, his first start against winners was against Sierra Leone and the Risen Star, and he wasn't disgraced there. Like if Belmont sees fit to run this horse, I'm inclined to back him. So maybe his figures are a little light, but again, like we saw in the Preakness with Seize the Great, he made a massive improvement in his buyer figure to get to a triple digit buyer and win the race. There's no reason why Belmont can't get resilience, I think, to do that here.
Rajiv, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, he took a tour de force of the Churchill Down Strip last time. He was stuck wide, and he made a early premature wide middle move. It's like he was stuck in no man's land, and that's never a winning formula trip. And he only got beat 7 lengths. So I think he definitely moves forward. Now he switches to the two post. He's already in a ground saving trip. So he'll definitely be closer in the Belmont than he did in the Derby. So I can see him making up a few lengths. At the end of the day, I feel like he's still just a notch below some of the top contenders. And even with his best race, he would still be needing a little more. I can, I actually have a head-to-head wager with Andy Serling. He's got resilience, and I've got Mindframe. So I feel very good about that.
You mean I have to root for Serling there to beat you? Oh, come on! I
Yeah,
don't want
yeah.
that.
So you might want to jump off that. So we got that going, but definitely a horse. I like this horse. I saw him down in Florida when he broke his maiden, and he looked really good that day prior to the race. I'm like, who is this horse? He stood out in the paddock, and I could see that he would be a horse that would be on some of the nice 3-year-old races. I, Resilience is the kind of horse that I can see winning some West Virginia derbies and races like that. Just a little bit below the top tier grade one horses for this crop. I'm more like of the horses that haven't hit the high numbers yet and the ones that you're looking for to find the next step forward. I like Antiquarian a little bit more. That horse is a one that was a little green when he was young, always showed that he had some talent, starting to put it together. And he got the worst adverse, everything that could go wrong went wrong in the Louisiana Derby for him. And I thought that he should have been a 6-5 shot in the Peter Pan, being that I saw what happened to him in his previous race, and he's putting things together. So Antiquarian would be the one. If you would look at a horse kind of lateral or similar to Resilience, I think he's the one I'd pick over him.
All right, guys, that's the Belmont Stakes. Officially on the record, Chris, you're going to go Sierra Leone. I'm going to go Mindframe. Rajiv, Mindframe for you as well?
Oh, you go Mindframe too. Let's go. Yeah, I got some support. Me, you, and Darwin.
Let's do it. All right, so let's hit a couple spot plays. There's a lot of races. There's a lot going on. If you want more about all the races that are be taking place, got the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival. You can get that at inthemoneypodcast.com. You can also get that on our YouTube channel. We're going to have a final answer show with Maggie Wolfendale that we're going to go through basically every race on Saturday. But for now, let's hit a couple spot plays. I know, Chris, you had an idea in the poker. I know Rajiv had an idea in the poker, and I actually need to at least give a shout out to my boy Casa Creed in the poker, going for his I don't know. I think it's a 6th win at Saratoga. He's running 7 straight years. Just an absolute cool war horse, but he's not always the horse you want to bet. Chris, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts in the poker?
Yeah, I mean, Casa Creed is a horse you always want to root for, but I think in terms of price, I think Kubrick, the number 6 horse, is a horse that you really want to look at. Won easily at first asking in the States when they brought him over. It from longshot to Tampa. He was favored in the race, obviously, and then kind of had a different type of trip in that short field, which Master of the Seas wound up winning. It went to the front, chased the rabbit, and then tired and faded. I think the rest, pointing to this race at Saratoga, if he's close to 8-1 on the morning line in this race, I think that's that's a 2 fists pushing into the table type best there on Kubrick if he's anywhere close to 8-1, which I'm not too sure he's going to be. But maybe we can get 6-1 or so, and I'll still be pretty happy with that.
Rajiv?
Yeah, what's funny, Kubrick was actually initially my pick for the race for the same things that you're talking about. He ran so fast first time in the country, a mile and 133 at Tampa, and then they threw him, where they thought that he would have a good shot in the Maker's Mark, grade 1, and he had just not the kind of trip that you'd want from a European-style horse. No pace in the race, chased that slow pace, and he faded. So I expect that they're going to take him back, cover him up, and make one sharp run, which is how he won in his U.S. debut. And for those reasons, I wanted to pick him. But then I looked at the race, and there's no speed in the race. There's no clear-cut pace setter. And that's what made me lean toward Mysterious Knight from the rail. Usually, you don't expect European horses to come here and go wire to wire. But I've seen it done in the past with like Maj from the St. Godolphin stables and stuff. And I feel like he's stretching out from a sprint to a route. In his North American debut up in Woodbine in the Summer Stakes, he won by 5 lengths at this distance. And I think this horse is going to wire the field from the inside. He has the speed advantage. He won going 7/8 twice over in Maidan. This horse is going to go to the front, I believe, and he's going to take a lot of catching because all the other horses, they have to come from off the pace. So he's going to be unchallenged early.
One of the spots that I wanted to stop at, and I know Chris feels similarly as well, is the Woody Stevens, and Chris actually texted me after Derby Day, and he asked a question, and I didn't know what the question meant until now when I told him that I wanted to talk about Vlahos, who I thought was sensational in the Pat Day Mile. Although he was third that day, the winner came back obviously and won the Preakness. The pace in that race was supersonic. It was a mile. Now he's cutting back. This is one of my favorite moves in racing. And there's a lot of horses that are going to take money in here. Prince of Monaco is going to take money. Valentine Candy, who I also respect, is going to take money. Imagination, who was exiting the Preakness. And then Bookham Dano, who has that wonderful second over in Saudi against Forever Young, are all going to take money. Chris, I love Vlahos in this spot.
Yeah, I'm with you. The wide post at the mile and setting those fractions the way he did, and now cutting back. Like, this is like, if I could just like circle and star and highlight like every possible like angle and move and reason why I like this horse in addition to you, like this is like a standout for me. And the fact that we're gonna get a pretty square price, yeah, I think I love this horse in this race. Doug O'Neill has done well when shipping to the NYRA circuit. It was funny. The question that I just to follow up on that, the question I texted you and Pete that after that later that day, I said, you guys know of any spots that have like future prices on Breeders' Cup Sprint? I know there's Breeders' Cup Classic, but this was what I was looking for. I would love a Breeders' Cup Sprint future price on Vlahos. So hopefully there's one out there, and hopefully he'll be a square price at some point, and hopefully he will win on Saturday.
I got to tell you, Chris, I'm not sure if it's a blessing or a curse that this race is at 3:22, which is 38 minutes before we go on Big Fox. We either had an opportunity to look brilliant together, or for everyone to be like, these two idiots, and change the channel.
We also could be sitting up a little bit higher in the chairs when we come on with a little bit of extra green in our pockets if he does wind up running well.
Absolutely. Race 9, I'll quickly hit the Jaipur. One of my favorite races is to be run at 5.5 furlongs instead of 6. I just got to say this out loud. I am never going to let Big Invasion win a big race at a nice price and me not be involved. He ran horribly last time. It's obviously concerning, but at one point I thought he was one of the best turf sprinters in the country. And at 8-1 on the morning line, if they're going to ignore him and dismiss him, I got to get involved a little bit with Big Invasion. In the Jaipur. The Met Mile.
You can make an excuse.
Let's see what you got in the Met Mile.
You can make a big excuse for him, JK, in that race. I mean, it was the second race of a long layoff, and it was a little wide. Maybe just didn't like the soft turf that day. It was clearly bet at 5-1. I don't hate that bet at all.
I hope so. Well, maybe that'll be our chance to be smart on TV. Rajiv, the Met Mile.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a horse here that I don't think many people will be picking at all. So it'll be a very big price. Hoist the Gold. I feel like it's the same kind of thing. Like earlier, there's not a lot of speed in the race. I know Johnny is going to get him out there in front. Johnny V is just, so good out the gate, so good early. And none of the top contenders like the National Treasure, these horses aren't going to want to go duel with him early because he's going to run fast. And that's his weapon. Run them off their feet. In a small field like this, I think he's going to get clear, and he might be able to steal it at a big price.
Fellas, I appreciate you guys taking the time. You're going to be able to catch all three of us at some point on one of these Fox channels. The Big Belmont will be on Big Fox from 4 to 7 on Fox, so check your local listings there. Make sure you get involved. There's a Pick 6 carryover on Thursday. I don't know when this is going to come out, so hopefully you saw that. You knew that. Pick 6 carryover on Thursday. A bunch of those 2-day wagers from Friday into Saturday. Stop worrying about the weather. It's Saratoga. We all know that we're always in danger with weather. We'll be just fine. For Chris, for Rajiv, I'm Jonathon Kinchen, and like Pete always says, may you win all your photos.